Welcome, and thank you for joining us. My name is Dan Lambe. I am the president of the Arbor Day Foundation, and it's great to have you with us during Climate Week. And I know there's been a lot of great sessions, a lot of great content this week, and we're excited to bring a conversation to you today with our friends and our partners. And we've been very purposeful about this topic, this question: can the push for trees tip the scale? Trees have gotten more attention over the last year than they ever have before, and it's exciting. And there are a lot of different voices calling for tree planting and work in forestry. And today you're going to hear from some of those voices, including social media influencers, non-government organizations and researchers, and from corporate sustainability leaders who are helping to drive the aspiration and the ambition for tree planting today. So thanks for being a part of this conversation. As we get started, I wanted to share why the Arbor Day Foundation is hosting this event at Climate Week. And the answer is, it's what we do. It's what we've always done. Since 1972, our simple mission at the Arbor Day Foundation is we inspire people to plant, nurture, and celebrate trees. Everybody's got some kind of memory they can share. Maybe it's from their first time they ever planted a tree at school or with their parents or their grandparents. Maybe people talk about their favorite tree-lined boulevard that they walk their dog down on a hot summer's day. Or maybe it's just the romantic notion of forests. Even if people don't ever really get to visit forests, there's just this innate love that people have for trees, and so that helps us at the Arbor Day Foundation. It's great. But in this moment, in this time, we need to go beyond memories and move past nostalgia, because we are taking on the biggest issue facing generations. We are working to do nothing less than protect the planet and the people that live here. And that's what we're doing. And that's why several years ago, we introduced our very first vision statement. And that's that we're going to be a leader in helping to increase the recognition and the use of trees as a solution to the most complex issues facing the nation and facing the globe. And anyone who's picked up the news lately has seen we've got a lot of work to do. We have historic forest fires burning across the western parts of the United States. We've all heard about the historic fires in Australia and the Amazon. These fires are burning millions and millions of acres of forest lands, destroying and damaging trees in communities and in our important forests. It hasn't just been hot where you live, it's been hot everywhere. Last 5 years have been the hottest years on record, and those excessive temperatures are creating real strains on communities, on forests, and on people. And we've all seen, many of us felt firsthand, the increasing frequency and severity of natural disasters that are damaging and destroying trees, whether it's typhoons or hurricanes or tornadoes. And this list unfortunately goes on and on. There are immense pressures being put on our forests, and those pressures are also being put on people. And that's why we say, if ever there was a time to be planting trees, that time is now. If ever there was a time for the work we do together, that time is now. Over the last couple of years, there's been unprecedented amounts of research and media reports about the importance of trees, the urgency of trees, and we know critical need for trees is bigger than it's ever been. Among nature-based solutions, trees are the #1 opportunity to scale in an affordable way to address the biggest issues facing our climate. Trees also help in a much more personal way. We know that neighborhoods with high tree density report up to a 25% decrease in childhood asthma rates than neighborhoods that don't have high tree density. Tree-lined boulevards and parks can reduce daytime temperatures by up to 10 degrees Fahrenheit, creating healthier, safer communities. And you don't have to take my word for it. Anyone who paid attention to the Team Trees social media viral campaign at the end of last year knows that people just love trees and want trees to be planted. We'll talk more about the Team Trees initiative a little bit later on today, but it isn't just about planting trees. I want to remind everybody that it is also about protecting the forests that we have today. It's about managing those forests in a sustainable way, and it's about restoration. The Arbor Day Foundation, we are doing this through our programs, our partnerships, and our projects in almost 50 countries around the globe, with exciting projects like in the Mississippi River Valley, where we are helping to plant millions and millions of trees to restore and protect one of the most important waterways in the world. And in doing so, we're also creating verified forestry carbon offsets. We're planting trees in the majestic and historic California National Forests to restore these critical forest lands and protect the watersheds and the people these forests serve. We're helping to plant and manage mangrove forests in places like Southeast Asia. These forests are literally helping to save lives and save communities as they help to stop the storm surges that are increasing in frequency. And we're working in cities and towns. Our urban and community forests, probably the hardest working trees out there, cleaning our air, shading our homes, creating thriving, more resilient, and healthy communities. It seems that everybody is talking about trees today, and that's great. There are so many new campaigns and conversations about the urgency for tree planting today, like the United Nations Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. And the World Economic Forum's recently launched 1T.org initiative. I'm thrilled to sit on the U.S. Stakeholder Council for the 1T.org initiative. There are lots of great campaigns, lots of conversations about trees because people recognize the potential and the possibilities with tree planting. So that's what brings us here today for this conversation. And thank you for joining us as we talk to our friends and partners about answering the question, can the push for trees tip the scale? We have a great lineup of speakers today, friends of ours from the social media community, from the non-government organization and research community, and of course, corporate sustainability leaders, helping to talk about the ambition and aspiration around tree planting. But we're going to start with our friends from the social media community and the Team Trees Initiative. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Team Trees Initiative, I'm going to give a little bit of background. It all started with a big idea. Leaders from the YouTube social media community challenged the Arbor Day Foundation to help them launch a campaign to plant 20 million trees, engaging their followers in the Team Trees effort. There was a lot of planning, a lot of coordination, and it all launched on October 25th, 2019. More than 600 YouTube creators participated in this initiative, the most collaborative effort ever put together in YouTube, all calling on their followers to help support the Team Trees Initiative. For every dollar raised, a tree would be planted by the Arbor Day Foundation. Within the first 24 hours, we had raised $3.5 million to plant trees. Within 56 days, we had raised over $20 million to plant more than 20 million trees all around the world. There were more than 750,000 donors to this initiative. The median contribution was $5. We heard fantastic stories from children and families who put together lemonade stands to raise money for the Team Trees Initiative. We heard from teachers in schools who were doing fundraising campaigns in their classrooms to help support tree planting. Citizens were responding, and they wanted to be a part of the tree planting momentum. This was by far the largest, most successful fundraising initiative in YouTube's history, and one of the most successful fundraising campaigns ever in social media, all about planting trees. This citizen engagement was led by YouTube influencers who helped challenge their followers to engage in the call for action to plant trees. We couldn't have done it without those YouTube leaders, including Destin Sandlin, who was one of the champions of the Team Trees Initiative. Destin leads the SmarterEveryDay YouTube channel, and he's been a great supporter of our work. Destin, thanks for joining us today, and thanks for being a part of this program. So do you mind sharing with us, when did you first hear about this? Why did you want to be a part of the Team Trees Initiative, and what inspired you around it?
There were a lot of conversations going on behind the scenes. The first thing we thought about was how do we get as many people as we can involved? How do we make the message very, very simple? And in how do we strategically execute the plan? I mean, it was very, very complicated. And of course, you had Jimmy, Mr. Beast, and you had Mark Rober, and you had all kinds of people working behind the scenes, working on this stuff. And so before it actually kicked off, we were strategizing about how to make it actually effective and make it work. And so that's kind of when I got involved early on. And so I'm sitting here looking at a spreadsheet. We had this behind the scenes spreadsheet of everyone we knew. And so we kind of took a wagon wheel approach. So we started with the concept, and we had these spokes, and the spoke would go out and you would find like gaming creators or makeup and beauty or science and education or whatever it was. And you would go along that spoke and you'd find a hub out there, and then that person would wagon wheel and become a leader in that area, in that particular genre of video. So it was a multi-staged approach. You know, we went with the concept, we found leaders, and we had those leaders contact other leaders. And we didn't discriminate in terms of the size of the content creator or whatever it was they were. I mean, we just straight up didn't care. Do you like trees? Cool. That's the requirement for entry. Let's go. So it's that simple.
Well, you are a significant influencer. I think you have more than 10 million followers. You are not inexperienced in viral campaigns and viral videos and getting citizens to pay attention. What was it about the Team Trees initiative that you think garnered so much attention from so many different kinds of communities?
Well, it was just so simple, right? So everybody likes trees. It's that easy. And so I think the reason it was so effective is we boiled it down to just that simple fact. Like, do you love trees and do you want more of them? It's that easy. And so I think today, and this was certainly true even a year ago, there's a lot of divisiveness, and, you know, people pick sides of a topic, but this is just a very simple, straightforward message that literally everyone could get behind, and we didn't cloud it up with anything political or anything controversial or, you know, polarizing. It was just straight up trees. And then if you hear that, you're like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do it.
What kind of excitement do you have when you see that kind of citizen engagement?
Oh, it's fantastic. From the smallest creators to the people that have, you know, very large followings, everybody was equally as excited when their audience got involved. And it became much bigger than anybody. It was a thing where people could take ownership. So, you know, I saw one little kid was talking about mowing yards and using his lawn mowing money for trees and things of that nature. So it's fantastic.
Tell me about how exciting was it for you as one of the originators, one of the leaders of the Team Trees initiative, to see how it grew?
Oh, it was crazy. So, well, first of all, there's no one person that you hang Team Trees on, right? There are tons of people working on it. What was so fascinating is it was a truly bottom-up leadership moment. I don't know. It was just fantastic to see it take a life of its own and be so much bigger than any one person. That was probably the best part.
You helped to inspire a lot of donors, a lot of activists, and new tree planters. And if you had one message or thank you could send to them, kind of what would you like to say to those folks?
Oh, it's fantastic. Thank you for investing in the future, because I can remember personally planting a tree with my grandmother back in the mid-90s. As silly as it sounds, there's a pine tree that I planted with my grandmother in the mid-90s, and I go to that tree and I look at that tree all the time. If I'm ever in that town, I drive by and I'm like, I planted that. To help people understand that they can do something today that's going to make a major impact in the future, that's amazing. It's going to make an environmentally conscious population that's going to understand that there are real ramifications and consequences and positive things that can happen from their actions today. If you're in a position of power and you have the ability to allocate some funding to do something like this, do it and celebrate the fact that you're doing it, and partner with the Arbor Day Foundation and make a positive impact. I think it's awesome. So let me just ask you, as CEO of the Arbor Day Foundation, money was your problem, trying to get donations and all that stuff, raise funds, and then one day you have a large sum of money. What's that like?
What we've seen over the last several years is a huge surge in interest in trees and forests from our members, from our corporate partners, other donors. Team Trees was one more validation of that in a viral campaign that we never could have predicted. But it was an affirmation of what we were seeing from other places. So we've already been scaling globally our reforestation opportunities. And we have so many projects around the world that need that resource. So Team Trees was able to just give us the green light to scale up, activate some projects and programs that have been really dying for some resource. And unfortunately, as successful as the Team Trees initiative was, it's just scratching the surface. Just scratching the surface for the hundreds of millions of trees that we need to strategically plant around the world. But it was a fantastic boost and a great way to elevate awareness. I'm serious when I say thanks for being positive and inspiring, because when I watch your videos, that's what I get out of it. You have fun with science. Right. And I hope we get to work with you some more.
I would love to. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And best of luck with this whole summit that you're doing.
Another big thank you to Destin Sandlin for joining us today and for his leadership in the Team Trees initiative. And now we're going to have a conversation with two experts from our partnering organizations, including Dr. Susan Cook-Patton with the Nature Conservancy and Tim Rayden with the Wildlife Conservation Society.
Hi, I'm Susan Cook-Patton. I'm the Senior Forest Restoration Scientist at the Nature Conservancy. And at TNC, I and many others work on all the different ways that we can use nature to help tackle climate change. So this involves the improved management, protection, and restoration of our forests, wetlands, agricultural lands, and grasslands. And we launched the idea with a paper in 2017, which showed two important things that I want to highlight here. The first is the power of nature to help tackle climate change. We found that nature could provide up to a third of the mitigation that we need in 2030 to keep us on a safe 2-degree pathway. The other important message that I want to make here is that while nature is powerful, it's not enough. It doesn't, give us a chance to just stop doing the reductions in fossil fuel emissions. We need both. We need nature, and we need to find energy solutions as well. After our global study, we followed up with a study in the US specifically and found again that nature had a really significant role to help tackle climate change. We found that these natural climate solutions could provide up to 1.2 billion tons of CO2 a year, which is equivalent to removing all light trucks and cars off of the road in the US, which is pretty amazing. And while we're here today to talk primarily about reforestation and trees, I want to emphasize that these natural climate solutions represent a toolkit that may make sense. One solution may make sense in one context more than another. And so to that end, TNC has actually just put together a platform released this week, which we're calling the U.S. Nature for Climate platform. And there, if you're interested to learn more about the best available science and numbers underlying the natural climate solutions, go there. You can also find case studies from landowners and communities that are actually bringing these natural climate solutions to the ground. So that's what I get to work on at the Nature Conservancy, is reforestation as a natural climate solution and trying to better characterize its potential, which really comes down to three things. How much carbon are we going to get from reforestation, which I work on, but won't talk about that here today. The next is area of opportunity, or basically where the heck are we going to put all of those trees? And then the last, of course, is implementation. Who are we going to work with and how are we going to get those trees? So just to talk a little bit more about our work around the area of opportunity, in that first study where we looked at natural climate solutions in the US, we developed this map of reforestation opportunity, which you can see here. And it was based on biophysical area of opportunity. So basically, is it appropriate for a forest? Yes. Is it not already a forest? No. And is it not filled with some high value land use like urban areas or roads or good cropland? And what was left was a big amount of opportunity that could sequester a ton of carbon, 307 million tons of CO2 equivalent per year. But we recognize that spans a lot of different land uses that people may or may not want to turn back into forests. So the study that we've actually just completed instead tried to break down opportunity more into a menu of options, so that we could facilitate local communities or states to take a hard look at what their reforestation opportunities are and figure out what are the ones that make the most sense for their given context. So we broke it down into 10 different menu items. The first 4 are around natural land, so unstocked forest patches, places that have shrub cover but could be forest, places that are already protected, so our national forest lands, for example, as well as places that have experienced a burn.
Thank you, Susan.
Let me introduce myself first of all. My name's Tim Rayden, and I work for the Wildlife Conservation Society, part of the Forest and Climate Change at WCS. And I work particularly on sustainable landscapes approaches and how we make forest restoration and tree planting work in that context and deliver on our core mission of protecting wildlife and wild places. Let me start by picking up on what Susan said about the importance of natural climate solutions in the battle against climate change. Because TNC in particular has done some wonderful work on highlighting this, the magnitude of an importance of NCS. The other thing that's critical, I think, in messaging about natural climate solutions is the importance of standing forests, standing intact forests for as a climate safety net. You know, the world's intact forests currently sequestering about 11 gigatons of carbon a year, which is around a third of human emissions from industry, and so without that, we're in really deep trouble. But we're cutting away at that safety net all the time, and the more we reduce forest cover, the faster CO2 accumulates in the atmosphere. So we have to protect the standing forest that we have, as well as engage in this massive, unprecedented restoration effort. And I think, I mean, the main thing I wanted to talk about today was the challenge of that scale. Our approach, as I said, was to start by working in partnership, coming together with BirdLife International and WWF in the Trillion Trees partnership that was formed in 2017, and try and pool our resources and our thinking on how we can mobilize resources, mobilize our expertise, and particularly leverage our presence on the ground. The Trillion Trees partnership is an opportunity for us, at least, to try and give some scale to our actions. It's founded on the 3-pillar strategy that says protect what we have, let's keep forest standing, let's address the drivers of deforestation, and let's restore forests where we can. On the restoration front, trying to bring together the restoration initiatives that we have across the partnership, and to support those through a program that's focusing on delivering restoration at the forest frontier. The places where we work are typically characterized by their remoteness and the fact that because we're conservation organizations, we're working where the pressures are greatest and where land use change is actually happening. So trying to deliver restoration in those contexts. Our approach is guided by a safeguards framework that we call the right trees in the right places. I was pleased to see that Susan highlighted that idea as well. But something that means we prioritize natural forest regeneration where we can to maximize biodiversity benefits. And we work at a landscape scale, so we try and integrate our restoration work with the other pressures on the landscapes, and we address questions of livelihoods that are often the underlying drivers of deforestation and land use change. And finally, that ensures decisions are guided by the local people within the landscape, and the decisions on where and how to do restoration are taken through the appropriate decision-making frameworks.
Thank you both very much for sharing. And you just were talking about scale. What is it about setting ambitious goals that helps to change action, change behavior? Can you give me some perspective on that from your organizations?
Right. Yes. So the Nature Conservancy is very about scale. I think the importance of having a large number is it gives us something to rally around and really drive our collective all of our collective efforts together towards these big goals. And we need big goals in order to really tackle the climate crisis. From my end, what I think about is that there's no right way to restore forests to the landscape. And so, it's a lot of area that Tim highlights, but it's not like we're trying to do a one-size-fits-all solution there. In many cases, we can rely on natural regeneration and the forest can grow back perfectly well on its own, as long as we take off whatever was disturbing it in the first place, and at a fraction of the cost and get back the native biodiversity. Whereas in other places, we might need to do planting, and can we figure out where we should prioritize those investments of time and resources and planting stock? as well as other times we may want to set up more of an agroforestry type system where you can couple human needs for food as well as a need for additional carbon capture. And TNC, I won't speak directly to this because there's others much better versed in this, but we're trying to develop sort of innovative financing mechanisms and provide people the information and the tools they need, and really just pilot stuff and see what works and learn from it, and then use that to drive greater ambition the next time around.
That's great. So, Susan, your research has helped to guide and share how nature-based solutions offer up to a third of the solution. And Tim, you mentioned how it's not getting a third of the attention, but it does seem like forestry is having its moment. Tree planting and forestry over the last 5 years has really surged in recognition and attention, partly great to the great research you've been doing. Do you mind speaking to that, how forestry and trees are becoming more a natural part of the conversation, how you've seen that adaptation in the conversation over the last handful of years?
Well, trees for many, many, many years have been doing our work, pulling carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, right? Like that's what they do, suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and store it in long-lived stores. So it's funny that you talk about trees just now getting the attention, because for years and years and years, they've been doing what they always do, which is to suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and lock it down in long-lived carbon stores. And we need more of that now. And at the same time, people are getting more excited about tree planting, I think because it's something that we can do, that an individual can do to help tackle the climate crisis. And many people are concerned, and you plant a tree, you feel really good about it because it's something that your children and your grandchildren will be able to see. But at the same time, while we're planting trees, we got to think about all the other hard work we need to do to get our climate crisis in check.
Right. Tim, do you want to mention your recognition, how you've seen an increase in attention and awareness as you've been pushing your campaigns?
Yeah, sure. I think it's essentially the same point, but I think I'd say after years of negative press from the environmental lobby, that's always been, stop doing this, don't do that, lay off this or change that. Finally, the tree planting message is something that's much more positive and empowering, and saying you can do something about this huge impersonal climate change problem. And here are some very practical ways you can engage.
Well, I appreciate the leadership you two and your organizations have provided around the world in helping to drive understanding of nature-based solutions and the importance of protecting, managing, and restoring forests. And thanks for being a part of this dialogue. And we look forward to working with you for many, many years to come. Thanks again, Susan and Tim, for joining us. Thanks for your leadership, and thanks for your partnership. We are truly grateful. And now we're going to move into our conversation with corporate sustainability leaders. And we've got a great lineup of leaders from around the world, including Ellen Jackowski from HP, Tim Carey from PepsiCo, Virginie Helias from Procter & Gamble, Suzanne DiBianca from Salesforce, and Ed Martinez from the UPS Foundation. Each of your companies have ambitious tree planting goals. What inspired those goals, and how are you working to achieve them?
I think we all recognize with climate change, nature is under threat. But it's also true that nature is part of the solution that we need to seek to solve the problems of climate change. And with that, we've done things like create the HP Sustainable Forest Cooperative. And that's where we've gone kind of beyond our own footprint, where we've already committed to zero deforestation branded HP paper. All of HP paper is sourced from recycled or certified sources that ensure that no deforestation is happening when you buy that package of HP paper. But for us to go beyond our own footprint, we recognize, one, we can't do it alone. We need to form something like this HP Sustainable Forest Collaborative and bring in partners like Arbor Day, like some of the biggest paper producers in the industry, International Paper, Domtar, and others, to work together. We all have very similar values and understand the science of what needs to change. And together with the power of that collaborative, that's how we're hoping to do it.
Actually, interestingly enough, our goals are not in number of trees, because as you say, the nature-based solution framework is more than just about planting trees. It's restoration, protection, and improvement of land management. And we will have a portfolio of solutions that address all of this. But for us, the goal is really to the carbon neutrality for the decade. So we will do whatever it takes to generate this carbon benefit that will compensate what we reckon will be 30 million tons of CO2. So that's our big goal, is 30 million tons of CO2. That represents, half of our emission that we believe that we will not be able to reduce, because for the most part it's natural gas footprint, and today there is no viable renewable alternative for it. So this is where nature comes to the rescue, and so for us it's important that we say carbon neutrality, because we'll do whatever it takes to be carbon neutral at the end of the decade.
Tim, why is it so important to be acting now?
Yeah, goals. I'm a sustainability professional. I have a long history of doing this, and without company goals, you really don't have this North Star target to rally your organization around, your stakeholders, your customers. And what we found is if we can align our goals, particularly the goals of our customers and partners, and with groups like yours, our chances of success are much greater. First of all, we've got something to measure, and we've got initiatives that we can define that work towards that goal. So they're really critical to our success. I have to be honest, I don't always want to know how do I get to the goal. Sometimes it's better not to understand that, because then you're going to be more creative. When we set out to achieve this goal called a 100% watershed replenishment, and we were looking around the table, it was like, who can help us with this? We didn't really know where to start. And so it was really organizations who are already doing things in the field that have helped us map a strategy that's developed by our teams and then pursue it. And we're counting progress. And there is absolutely no way that we're going to stop until we, either delivered or over-delivered on that goal.
It was really all about building a UPS forest all over the world. It was about building a reforestation initiative that gets to parts of the world where UPSers may not live, but where we have a vested interest in advancing these communities.
So 15 million trees is an enormous success. So congratulations. What's next for UPS?
And I'm very proud to make this announcement, because, we've realized now the importance of trees. We've realized that we need to reach those sustainable development goals. It's important to humanity. It's important to our planet. And so having had all of that in front of us, the company, the leadership, our people really are behind this initiative. And I'd like to announce that today we are launching an effort to plant 50 million trees by 2030 to help the world reach those sustainable development goals. We believe that planting trees is an integral part of making the world a better place. So UPSers around the world are mobilized, and we're ready to go and start planting trees.
It is going to make such an enormous impact in communities, in neighborhoods, and in forests around the world. So Salesforce, you have a long history and commitment to advancing sustainability. Why is tree planting now a must-have for Salesforce in your sustainability goals?
We really spent the first 2 years making sure that we are a net zero company. We deliver a carbon neutral cloud for our customers. We have 80% of our buildings or more that are LEED Platinum certified. So, and our, that's internal and external. We really looked at scope 3, offsetting that. We made commitments with some of our supply chain. So we really started around operational excellence. And now where our ambition is in engaging other corporations to go faster and using our technology to power the movement. We realized it was something that we could affect change with rapidly. We could engage our employees, we could engage our ecosystem, we could engage our our corporation and investments to really make a difference faster. But we know that we have to do both. And trees are something that, and one upside of the pandemic, I think, has been people are communing with nature in a way they hadn't been for a while. And gathering outside and going for walks as a way to keep your mental health. And so I think now more than ever, people are remembering the importance of nature and the importance of trees. And it speaks to everyone. It's a bipartisan issue. A child can engage, an older person can engage, a corporation, a city. So we love it because we think it's sort of one of the most inclusive ways to affect change on the carbon capture perspective.
So one of the things we're doing as a part of this session is hoping to inform and inspire others to engage. And I know Pepsi has a long history of not just working by yourself, working with collaborators like the Nature Conservancy, WWF, Arbor Day Foundation. Would you talk to us about that, how you view your role in helping to encourage your peer companies, whether they are customers or just collaborators, in pushing the corporate leadership in sustainability?
Historically, trees and forests are undervalued. You're probably aware of that. And the one thing we found is during the first few years of our sustainability journey is we were focused in our fence lines. So we were doing water efficiency projects or carbon reduction projects in our factories. And they were great things, but it was interesting how they weren't as meaningful to our employees. And our employees are living in these communities until we started to look beyond the fence line. And so when we started doing forest-related projects or open space projects, what we realized were two things. Again, our like employees and the communities were like jazzed about it. They wanted to get involved. They wanted to participate. And so we had a way to like pull everybody into the sustainability mission. So that was one. But the second thing is you would get something, it's a term we like to use around here called stacked wins. You could do something as seemingly simple as replanting trees, which provide habitat. It's like not only would you get that, but you would improve the amount of water in a watershed. You might enhance groundwater infiltration. You might clarify the water so that what shows up downstream is actually cleaner, less sediment, less silt. You would do things that benefit the local water treatment plant in the community. And that's where we draw our water from. So by planting trees, something that improves air quality, sequesters carbon, improves groundwater supply, we were also finding that it reduced our treatment costs because the water coming from the municipality now was cleaner. And so it was very interesting that you kept getting these stacked wins. Something as simple as tree planting provided multiple benefits across a bunch of platforms. So that's why we're extraordinarily excited about the partnership and the efforts.
This last year, we've seen enormous momentum in attention and awareness around the importance of tree planting. Can you share with us how your companies are helping to drive that momentum? Virginie, what do you think?
We can be a catalyst for system transformation, be it on plastic or natural climate solution, forestry, and really have everyone in the ecosystem part of the solution, from concept of from industry to activist.
1T.org is a ambitious goal. And the interesting thing about it is it's not new. So we were not trying to stand up anything that was a net new effort. And the World Economic Forum is an incredible convening platform for change makers. And so if you look at the UN's decade of ecosystem restoration, which they're kicked off this year, they had as part of that a trillion tree effort. There is lots of people who have big goals in this area. And so this was not meant, the 1T.org effort was really meant to be sort of what we call like a light umbrella. One thing I learned when I was getting a crash course in forestry was incredible organizations doing great things, hard to scale, often in a vacuum, not as much collaboration as in other areas. And so the effort was meant to bring all of those incredible existing efforts together, whether it's some of the ones you mentioned, the Nature Conservancy or Arbor Day or WRI, or you go down the list and really say, how can we put wind in the sails of existing efforts from an investor perspective, from an engagement perspective, from a advocacy and policy perspective.
Ed, how about UPS Foundation? How would you answer that?
Well, I spend most of my time these days really creating these partnerships, creating coalitions, because we understand that we can't do it alone, that the Arbor Day Foundation and UPS can't do it alone. So we try to really be a spokesperson for public-private partnerships in all of our areas. A strong area for us is humanitarian relief and resilience. We have COVID-19 that's just attacking all different parts of the world. We need to work collectively to fight COVID. We need to work collectively. As you and I are speaking today, we have hurricanes hitting the west coast of the United States and Florida. We have to work collectively to protect these communities. And so for us, it's again, 1 + 1 = 3. And it's not about what UPS is doing or what UPS and the Arbor Day Foundation is. If we can set an example and call more people to the table, that's when we're going to make a measurable difference.
At the Arbor Day Foundation, we focus a lot on planting trees. Do you mind sharing a little more detail about HP's approach in those areas where recognizing it isn't just planting, it's managing and protection as well?
You can't just plant a tree and walk away, right? We've as consumers, I think sometimes depended a little too much on if I plant a tree, I've kind of solved the problem. Well, you might have planted that tree, and then 6 months later, if you're not properly managing it, it might not be watered enough, it might die, right? What we're doing in this space, to keep our forests regenerating for years to come, that takes clear effort and planning and foresight around that conservation and that maintenance and the management of the healthy forest. So it isn't a single action on one day. It's a commitment that you need to make to that ecosystem over time, over decades, over years, over generations. And so as we look at any forestry projects at HP, it's critical to us that whoever we partner with has that same philosophy of it's not one and done. We are making an investment for the long haul to ensure regeneration for decades to come.
One more question for each of you. What is it about trees that gets you excited?
2 words, health and wellness. When I think of trees, I think of all the things that they do to improve our health and to improve our wellness, our way of life. And, we talked about all of those different social features that they bring. And those are the 2 words that come to mind when I think of trees.
What I think just the fact to realize that trees, forests, and nature holds a third of the climate solution. I think it's like such a powerful thing. That was my last year, and I still marvel at this very simple thing. But also there is something very interesting with trees and forests. It's all the collateral human benefits. When you have projects, and we have projects in the Palawan Philippine mangroves, you don't just, or in the Brazil tropical forest, you don't just address climate change. You actually help the local communities thrive because their livelihood, their well-being depend on healthy and resilient forests.
Well, I live in Northern California. I spend a lot of time hiking outdoors, and that is where I thrive. That's where I get my own personal energy. So in addition to kind of understanding the important scientific role that forests play to keep human beings alive, thriving, and breathing every day, I also have utter respect for the beauty that they create, the ecosystem that you just mentioned, the wildlife that thrive in the forest. So I definitely have a deep personal connection to them. I spend a lot of time among the forests near my home. So really important to me personally and of course professionally.
Can I tell you a personal story?
Please.
So I went to school in Western Oregon. This is a few years back. And, like all college students, I'm poverty stricken. And so I would just take jobs whenever I could get them. And most of my jobs are kind of boring, the dorm cafeteria or the local pub on campus. But one term I worked for a consulting firm, and we were doing cross-sectioning in the Umpqua National Forest, which is, an hour or so south of Roseburg. That's the part we were in. And it was beautiful. I would hike around the wilderness in the Cascade Mountains. And in cross-section, what you're doing is you're measuring the slope of the land. And so if you know Oregon or Western Oregon, it can be extremely thick underbrush. It's hard to hike around. But every once in a while, you'd come into a clearing, and it would be old growth. And there was, below the tree canopy and the ground, there was nothing, wide open spaces. It was unbelievably beautiful. I realized what I was doing. A cross-section is being done by a consulting firm so that you can build a logging road. And so I was making way for these trees to fall. And for 30 years, I had been trying to repay that debt. So that's one of the reasons. I mean, I enjoyed the beauty of it for sure, but I owe a debt to the forests in the West in particular. And that's one of the reasons I'm here today. And it's one of the reasons I've been doing sustainability for 30 years is to kind of repay that.
And if I think about your question, like, what do I love about trees? I think from my perspective, they like represent strength. They represent a return to values of nature and what's important. And I think about my kids climbing them when they were little. I think about, they're the first thing I see when I wake up every morning. I love that everybody, it's inclusive. We talked earlier about, it's bipartisan, it's age agnostic, it's gender agnostic, it's cultural. Like every culture around the world reveres a tree. And that's really a beautiful thing. And I am looking for opportunities in the world to bring people together, to find common ground, to be inclusive. We're just seeing way too much polarization. And I think the tree is a really nice rallying point for inclusivity.
A final thank you to all of our speakers and presenters. As you can tell, a very impressive group of leaders from around the world who are coming together, our friends and partners, helping to answer the question of, can the push for trees tip the scale? And as I close, I just want to offer a reminder that our work is important. All of the work we do together is important. In this contentious and divisive time, trees are about the one thing that we can all agree on. Trees connect generations. They connect cultures. They connect communities. And they create healthy, thriving cities and forest lands. So on behalf of the Arbor Day Foundation, thanks everyone for being a part of this forum, and we look forward to great success together for years to come.